You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pinkus and André Prue.
Hello, Michael.
Andre, how the hell are you?
It's been,
I can't believe I'm seeing your face.
I know, this seems to happen like every few years now, where you just decide to like F off and disappear for months at a time. And I'm not going to lie, it's a little unusual, you know? I kind of miss you, like, you know, like when you get a sunburn and the pain starts to go away and you're kind of like, oh man, I miss that because it felt like I had like a good day sitting in the sun too long.
You miss me like a sunburn. Not really sure I like that one. At least you didn't say something even worse, like I miss you like a rash I had once or something.
So how's your dry January going?
Oh, I wish you'd stop with the dry January. I sent you a meme that I really mean it. Like, you have been all over social media with your dry January stuff, and I sent you
I actually have not. I haven't posted anything.
Usually you do. I put it this way, every time I look, it's about your dry January. So what, have you posted 3 times about it?
I've posted 0 times about it.
No, but you do make mention of it. I've been sick, so my dry January has been easy. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, I made one. Okay, you're right. I made one mention of it, and it's a joke that's not a joke. Life with a toddler is not for the faint of heart. Since December 15th, we're recording this on January 19th. I've been healthy 7 days. So I've been sick for over 30 days of the past like month and a bit. And today is like one of the first days. I might cough a little bit on the podcast. Hopefully people listening to the podcast won't actually hear that. But the joke that I made is that, well, the joke that I made was this is the easiest dry January I've ever had to do, because when you can't breathe, like I'm certainly like I don't drink when I'm feeling unwell. And I think people who've listened to this podcast know that I'm generally drinking a little better than I did when we started the podcast, because I'm making a little bit more money. And it's just like, I don't want to open a $20 or $30 or $40 bottle of wine when I'm feeling kind of lousy. So, you know, I'm going to make it through the month, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I'm not going to lie. I know you're teasing, but I'm kind of on your side. Like, nobody gives a crap about dry January. I'm not going to be talking about non-alcoholic wine this year. You and I, we've done the content. I've done it on the radio show. And honestly, there are much more interesting things to talk about on this podcast today. And for once, you're the one that's actually bringing the interesting stuff to the podcast.
Well, I wouldn't say for once, my friend. I usually bring the interesting stuff to the podcast. It's interesting. Just a little aside. As you know, I've been in Italy. Now I'm in France, in Bordeaux, in fact. But Italy just okayed non-alcoholic wine.
They just okayed it?
Yeah, like they just made it something that wineries can now do. Like literally can create non-alcoholic wine.
I kind of picture in my head. It's now a crazy
category.
Well, but I sort of picture in my head like the fact that it's like something that needs to be allowed, and I put that in air quotes here. Where I guess anybody could make non-alcoholic wine, but now if you are, let's pick Szekaya, they could make non-alcoholic Szekaya. But I mean, I still just picture in my head you using the terminology allowed is like imagining like the Italian wine consortios, these like old Italian people sitting around tables screaming at each other, "No, there must be alcohol in wine. We are not going to do this. You must have the alcohol in the wine."
I think that brings us to a topic that may, people may want to weigh in on. Is it still wine if it has no alcohol? Or is it like just grape juice, or does it just become like a grape beverage?
Well, the thing for me is
wine.
Well, the thing for me is it's always come down to taste. And the thing is, like, I've done the non-alcoholic wines, and like I tip my hat to the people in that side of the market trying to fill that need. I actually haven't picked up any non-alcoholic beer this year, and I really would rather get to you in Bordeaux than on this. So let's wrap up like after this here. But non-alcoholic wine tastes like trash. And, it's another situation of Carolyn Hammond being completely utterly shameful in recently publishing an article in the Toronto Star scoring non-alcoholic wines 92, 93, 94 points. And it's like, these wines don't taste like wines. And the ones that kind of taste like wines, you're swapping alcohol for sugar.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And that was a big debate or a big talk we had over here, not just in Italy, but I had it here in Bordeaux. It's another topic here about non-alcoholic wines. Who's drinking wine? It really is a huge topic here in Europe about the dwindling market for wine. And I think that is something that we will be touching upon later in the year once I bring some of my my audio back home and we get to look at it in my interviews. You're going to be hearing a lot of Bordeaux producers are now very afraid of the market that we are going into, and of course China being a market that is, you know, basically tanking on them and them shitting. I hate to say it this way, but they've been shitting all over their traditional market to get the big dollars over in China, and now China has gone, nope, we're not buying your wine anymore, and they're trying to go back to their regular consumers who are like, well, we don't want to buy them at that price.
That's it. I mean, there's a simple solution for the Bordelais. Drop your prices. You know, I've been not shy to say that I don't mind spending a few dollars on a bottle of wine, but I know we're kind of deflating stuff that I was hoping to get into with you down the road, but there's not a single Premier Grand Cru Class A on the planet that is worth the price. Not anywhere near it. I've been happy. I treated myself with the HST holiday. I bought myself a bottle of 2014 Clos Vougeot for $230-some dollars. You know, that's a lot of Skrilla. Like, that's a lot of scratch for one of the, you know, top vineyards in Burgundy, but that's still in reach. Like, that's still affordable. Like, if I want to buy a bottle of Grand Cru Burgundy that I want to share with my friends, I'm not looking at having to spend $1,900 like I do on a Latour from the LCBO that's coming in on Bordeaux futures.
Yeah, but you're also looking at your Burgundy having the same problem. You'll see it. It's coming. Burgundy is starting to raise their price as well, because Burgundy is the hot place now, or has it ever not been? But I mean, Bordeaux was always hot, and Burgundy was always, you know, affordable to a point. But now you are getting into that stratosphere where France, you know, the big regions in France, Bordeaux and Burgundy, are going to be pricing themselves out of the market and trying to figure out. I went to a Saint-Emilion Grand Cru Class A, which is a different classification than the 1855 classification.
Yep.
You know that. I'm sure some of our listeners know that, but if you don't, and we'll get into this, you know, going forward. But like I picked a bottle of wine. I really liked the bottle, and I was like, you know what? If this is 50, 60 euros, I might pick it up. I know that's around not my price range, but I'm thinking, I really like this bottle of wine. And they said it's 150 euros. And I went, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I literally said that out loud.
Good. I mean, good for you. I mean, good for you. Like, it's the sort of thing where what is going into the bottle that's justifying the cost. And, you know, and if you were original owner who sold to a private equity firm or to a Chinese firm who are now in debt to have purchased that winery, I mean, that's the risk you took when you got into that business, right? Anyways, before we like go completely off the rails on something more negative, I really wanted this to be a more positive podcast. I know a lot of people are following me on social media at The Grape Guy on Instagram. On
There's some
Facebook
great pictures coming out, aren't they? Admit it. You
That's
even
it.
said so.
Like, it's, dude, it is wine porn. Like, it has been a lot of fun to see the wines that you've been tasting and what you've been doing. And I actually wrote a script for us, which is not something we typically do with Two Guys Talking Wine, just because I want to keep this focused. So let's go here. Like, where you said that you're in Saint-Emilion right now, but where have you been for the past like 3 weeks?
Okay, so we got here on the 5th. We started basically in Pessac-Léognan and Sauternes, and then we have now moved on to the right bank So Pisac and Sauterne are on the left bank. We're now on the right bank. We're going to be here for another week and a half. And then we are moving back to left bank, I think, the last bit of the trip.
And right now you're in Saint-Emilion, as you said. You've been doing some tasting there.
Yeah. Yeah. So Saint-Emilion, Saint-Emilion, we've been kicking around here for a while. Pauillac, Pomerol. Pauillac obviously is on the other side. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. Yeah, so we are we're raping.
Have you been into the village of Saint-Emilion yet?
I think we've driven by it because we keep skirting around it, but the plan is to go probably on the weekend. I know this is Sunday, but I mean, yesterday we had a large 150 wine tasting of a grouping of wines, members of the association of it's called the Grand Cercle.
The Big Circle.
Yeah, Big Circle.
Right on. So, rather than have you rattle off a bunch of tasting notes, which, in an effort to make this podcast more interesting, I don't think that most people find rattling a bunch of tasting notes off terribly interesting, especially since you've literally tasted hundreds of wines. I thought we would focus in on just a few highlights, especially from the left bank there, and I thought we would
just to touch on that. How many wines we've tasted so far in about 2 weeks? About 350 wines.
350 wines?
Yeah,
that's not bad.
No,
for some reason I thought it would have been higher.
Sorry, that's wrong because yesterday was 150 wines, so we are now almost 500 wines.
Okay, I thought for sure it would be a bit more than that because I've been seeing the photos there.
Yeah, so about 500. I forgot yesterday's tasting because it was really a blur. But yeah, there was another 150 added to the list.
All right, so instead, off the microphone before we hit record, I asked you to focus in on a few highlights so far, and we've narrowed it down to a few wineries. And the first winery that was at the top of your list is Château de Rainvignon. Correct?
Yeah. Now, why is it at the top of my list? Well, first of all, it's the first winery I walk into in Bordeaux. So obviously, this is the first place we visit, and this place is it's a Sauterne house. Okay. So I'm thinking just nothing but sweet, right? But even Sauterne is doing dry wines because dry white is huge, and right now the big question for Bordeaux producers, not just those in Sauterne but anywhere else, is do we make white wine? I don't know if that's going to hit people as much as you think, because Pizzac-Léognan does have white wine production. Obviously, Sauterne does have white wine production, but they're talking about dry white wines. And even here in Saint-Emilion and on the right bank, which is at the moment not really allowed to make, they are a red wine producing area. They're not allowed, again, I'm using the word allowed to make white wine, but the debate is, do we jump on the train and everybody start making white wine? And we are in Sauterne. They're now making or starting to turn towards also dry wine because Sauterne is a very tough market. If you think of port, if you think of the ice wine market, it's interesting to be in Sauterne and talking to these producers about ice wine, which is a much sweeter wine than that. Like here in Sauterne, you get 100 grams to about 140 grams per liter.
Yeah.
Right? And that's drier than ice wine, but you can still make the parallel about how hard it is to sell these wines.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is something you and I are going to be touching on over the podcast. I'm going through some tape on my side as well from my trip to Bordeaux, and I drank a crap ton of port while I was on that trip, and it's just I think you and I as critics and as journalists, we kind of go through the same thing. When a bottle of sweet wine gets opened at either one of our houses, whether it's ice wine, I'll be honest, I haven't opened much Sauterne, but I have purchased some because it's kind of nice when you can see a bottle that says Grand Cru Class A and it's only $50-$60 for a half bottle, to have that to put into the cellar to see what the hubbub's about. But I also know, chemically speaking, these are wines that do improve with age. You and I had a chance to do a Sauterne tasting kind of as the pandemic was. It was one of the first events post-pandemic that we did, and it was just like tasting these wines are nice. And it's just like it's just that first off, I don't think people know how to drink sweet wines, and secondly, I think it's just it's kind of like the screw cap thing. It's kind of like a hangover from when this entire North American culture has gotten into wines, which is like, oh well, screw caps must be crappy wine and sweet wines mean they're bad. And like I know you and I, like, we've crapped on Caymus for their residual sugar content. And the thing is, the problem with Caymus isn't the fact that it's a sweet wine. It's the fact that it would probably be a much better wine if it was fermented dry, especially when you take a look at other California Cabernets made in the region.
Or drier, right? Like,
and that's it. But like, to talk about sweet wines is just like, I understand and I love that you drew the parallels to ice wine. And if you want to talk about like pricing as well, it's just like, I do think that ice wine, in spite of knowing what goes into it, in spite of knowing the specialness that goes into it, it's just like, if I have $50 to spend on a bottle of Ontario wine, I would still rather grab a Thomas Batchelder or Ilya Senchuk single vineyard Chardonnay than an Inniskillen Riesling or a Henry Appellam Riesling. And that's not to say that Henry Appellam and Inniskillen and Chateau des Charmes don't really know what they're doing with ice wine, because they do. It's just, I would rather drink a really good dry wine from the region when it comes to those prices, you know?
Like we have a fridge full of Sauternes. We went to a place called Raymond Lafond, which is, it's not a Grand Cru Class A. They actually were not on the map during Grand Cru Class A. And I think they start in 1859 or something like that. So they just missed the bubble by like 4 years. But they are considered now to be one of those great houses for Sauterne. And they are having a hell of a time selling Sauterne. I think the only place not having a hell of a time selling Sauterne is Yquem. But that's huge dollars a bottle. We ended up buying some Sauternes at, 30 euros a bottle, 40 euros a bottle from them, and they are delicious. And we probably all have a sip of it, or at least finish a bottle every couple of days. We start with it sometimes, but we were with some guys from Switzerland and Germany yesterday during this tasting, and they say, oh, we don't drink Sauterne. We only have it with foie gras and blue cheese once a year. And that probably is what most people think of sweet wine is. Now, the thing about Sauterne, and I wanted to really touch on this really, really quickly, is what they are trying to do with Sauterne. And it was a very interesting idea that the winemaker, well, not an idea, but it's a philosophy that he came up with, is he said, when you think about Sauterne, everybody thinks sweet. But when you think of a drink like Coca-Cola, nobody thinks of it as sweet. They think of it as refreshing, because Coca-Cola has figured out the way that, yes, it has sugar, but they also add citric acid to make it, a little bit bitter, and it's a little salty, and it's got all of those different aspects that nobody thinks of it as just a sweet drink, although that's really what it is. It's super, the sugary stuff is so sugary, so salty. It's got all those components. So what he's trying to do now is find a way to make Sauterne have all of those different components. And it's all about the picking. So for ice wine, all of the grapes are desiccated, and basically you really have no choice. But in Sauterne, what you're looking for, obviously, is that botrytis, that noble rot. But if you look at a bunch, not all of the grapes have noble rot and are turned into raisinated or desiccated. You have some grapes on the bunch that are like whole grapes. You have some grapes that are partially botrytis affected, and you have some bunches that are fully botrytis affected. And it's about finding that ratio every year. You get 10% of whole grapes, so you get that juiciness. You get another 10% of the ones that are partially desiccated, and then you get the ones that are fully botrytis. And if you can find that ratio at the time that you're making the wine, you can add everything that Coca-Cola does. You can find the acidity, you can find the bitterness, and you can find the sweetness.
Well, I think using Coca-Cola is a great example, but I think that this particular winemaker might be barking up the wrong tree, because like Coca-Cola's marketing engine is unstoppable. Like, you see that logo everywhere on the planet. But when you think about a Coca-Cola ad, like when I think about the Coca-Cola ads that run over the holidays, like Santa Claus and the polar bears, nobody's talking about what it tastes like, because we already have an idea of what it tastes like. But they're selling me on an experience. They're selling me on family. They're selling me on fun.
Correct.
I think
that's what they're trying to sell you on. But what they're trying to do is, he's not trying to be Coca-Cola. What he's trying to do is he's trying to find that recipe to make it so that, he can keep his, put it this way, the Rain Vigneault wines, when you tasted them, like the 2017 that we tried, I would not have told you that was really, really sweet. It was really sweet, but he had found a really lovely balance so that when you tasted it, you got the sweetness on the tongue, but then the finish was like, that almost tastes bitter and dry. And you're like, how the hell did he do it? And then they explains how he finds the different grape to throw into it. And that's kind of what he's looking for. Instead of, Sauterne being sweet, it's never going to be refreshing, but it is going to be something you want to have another glass of instead of one glass and done.
Okay, so the second winery that you visited that made an impact on you was Haut-Bailly. And paint me a picture of what it's like when you arrive at this winery. Because, I mean, like, having been to Bordeaux, this is one of the most picturesque wine regions you're going to visit, and this is something that I don't think anywhere else in France can hold a candle to, having been to a few wine regions in France. And I guess as the second part of the question, because I do want you to really paint this picture, is this something that like a civilian can do with an appointment, or are you really getting the VIP?
So it's a double-edged sword here. The idea of wine tourism is new to Bordeaux. We don't think of Bordeaux as having anything new, really, if you think about it. They've been around for so effing long that, we think that the idea of having a store to walk into and buying wine is just typical. It's not. That's the shocker here. Like, when I go to a winery and I say, can I buy a bottle of wine, 50% of them say, we don't have any of this wine on the property. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm tasting these wines. Well, they had to go somewhere to get it, like their warehouse or their negociant or somewhere where they have, or they get it from their private stock, but they're not selling it. They don't have I don't know if they don't have a license to sell it on property, or, one winery said that to sell wine, we need your address to prove that we sold it here at the property. But the idea of wine tourism is not even a decade old here. To have a wine shop is new to them. Haut-Bailly actually does have a wine shop, so that was quite interesting. They have a brand new facility, which is absolutely, it literally sits. If you look at Haut-Bailly from a certain direction, you will not see their cellar, although it sits, 2 stories above. It lies really gently on the land, let's call it. And they have a garden that goes over top of it. Of course, they have the chateau there. Yes, we got the the red carpet treatment. Krister, who I'm with, is very well known here. He's from Norway, and he's very well known here in Bordeaux. Some places better than others, but he always, somebody always knows him, and he gets along very well with the proprietor, or the former proprietor. Now she just runs the place because the place was bought. And that's another thing that you're seeing here in Bordeaux, is that a lot of the places are no longer family run because they can't afford the tax system that they have here. If André, I'm going to scare the hell out of you, but pretend you're my son, and I say to you, okay, I own this chateau. It's time for me to pass it on to you. And now you have to pay 40% of the current value of that property to take it over. That's the what's the when you I can't even think of it now.
Tax.
What was that?
It's an inheritance tax.
Inheritance tax. That's right.
Yeah.
So imagine if you own a chateau that is $1 million, you've got to come with $400,000 just to take it or get it. So, and who's got that? So now you have to sell it to someone else. So the current person who's looking it over looking after the place is Veronique Sanders. Now her family and grandfather were owned the property, but then they had to sell it. And but she still, thankfully gets to look after the place. She does a great job. She's a winemaker. They got like state of the art facilities. We go for lunch. And she opens these really old bottles. Like, first of all, Haut-Bailly has a special place in my heart because it was the first wine of my birth year that I ever had. So I told her that, and then she's like, "Oh, what's your birth year?" And I said, "It's 70." She goes, "Oh, that would have been my great grandfather. I don't have any of that on the property. I wish I did. I would have to go home. Had I known, I would have brought one." It turns out Krister is 79. She had some of that on the property, so we tried his birth year. We tried 79, 89, and then 16, 15, and 14, I think, is the years we tried from the property. And look, these are just great wines. They were fantastic. It was, but in a beautiful property, but one of the few that, as I said, have a store. And you could go into and shop around and buy wine and have a tasting room where you could taste I guess without an appointment. I guess you could show up if you wanted to.
Oh wow! That for people listening to this podcast, that is virtually unheard of. I've never been able to do that, nor would I recommend it to people going to France.
No, I would definitely not do it.
Yeah, make your appointments. Like, absolutely, yes. Make your appointments. Like, at the very least, do that. But I mean, that's also great for them, though. Like, that's the winds of change a blow in there. If I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if, like, one of my favorite things about wine tourism in France is when you make those appointments, it's an intimate experience. Like, you get to have that one-on-one with the people, and like, even places where, like, it's groups, it's still generally small, curated groups. And it's just, like, I hate the idea, because, like, I'm not going to lie, and I'm sorry, like, Wines of Ontario, but the, like, showing up at one of the large wineries and having a tour bus show up and have a tasting room packed shoulder to shoulder, that's not a fun experience. Like that does nothing to make me want to buy wines, having to fight for space at a tasting bar. Like, I think there's a reason why the cool places in Niagara are really flourishing. Places like Thomas's Bat Cave or Kelly Mason and 16 Mile and the Farm, doing these really intimate, smaller events, are really taking off. So, like, I don't know, I just have this, like, nightmare that I'm imagining of, like, you and Krister at Haut-Bailly in a few years, and this busload of bachelorette parties showing up.
They still have the right of refusal, right?
Okay.
And
I mean, they are French, right?
Yeah, they are French. And somebody, although it was interesting, I was sitting at a table with two winemakers, and one of them said, "You would want to have a bus of 50 people just show up at your winery?" And he said, "Yes." And she went, "I would hate it." So it would. It was
a split.
Yeah, so they really are still stuck in the past, but moving towards the future. realizing that China's not going to take it all. Their old customers are not going to take it all, so they're going to have to open up the place to have customers coming in and buy wine, just like everywhere else in the world.
So
have a wine shop.
So did you buy anything at Obai?
I did not. No.
Okay. So this is something I've been curious to talk to you about, because you have categorically on this podcast said there's no bottle of wine on the planet worth more than $30, which I know you said half tongue-in-cheek, but I also know the other half of you means a statement like that. I think for me, the needle's a little higher. Like, I think there are very few bottles of wine on the planet worth more than $50 or $60 a bottle. I think when you're spending more than $100 on a bottle of wine, you're definitely padding someone's pocket or helping someone pay their mortgage. And I've done that a few times. Like I said on this podcast, I bought a Jadot Clos Vougeot because I really was looking forward to tasting this, and it was a 2014 as well, so it's ready to drink now. I've bought the odd bottle of champagne. Do you think in Bordeaux there are some wines that are worth the price, or like, do you think there's a reckoning coming?
Well, there's definitely a reckoning coming. There's no doubt about it. Even they can see it. And the problem is, it's like the Titanic, right? I'm not saying Bordeaux is going down, but what I am saying is that it's, to turn the ship is a slow process. They're not going to.
It absolutely is.
And to get out of the another debate over here is the role of the négociant. Which is another story altogether. That basically every winery you go to, they're yes, the négociant is the way to go, the only way to go, and then there's some wineries who go, nope, it's not the way to go. We have to turn the ship. I
could see both sides of the argument. Like, if you're a large, well-known Premier Grand Cru Class A or Grand Cru Class A winery, direct to consumer, like you cut a step out of the supply chain, which means more money in your pocket and in theory, hopefully better prices for the consumer. But I mean, for ADX, I have an agent. We have an agent. It's a side hustle for me, and it's still a side hustle for me and all of the business partners. Having an agent to rep us and to help us sell our wine is something that's necessary for us. Like, if you're a winery in Bordeaux that doesn't have a sales staff. I mean, that's the thing is, if you don't have a négociant, or you're not working with négociants, you're going to have to hire sales staff, an export manager. Like, you're going to have to get those wines to the market somehow, right?
Yeah. And again, as I said, I understand there's like 4 really big négociants that work in this market. And then it's, anyway, back to your topic. Put it this way.
Question.
When we were at Raymond Lafond, we bought 6 bottles of Sauterne. Different years, different size bottles. I think there was one full-size bottle. There was most of them were half-size, and one was a 500 ml. We each pitched. They made us a deal, let's say, and it was 150 euros. So 50 euros each. So all these back vintages, which was really nice. I was totally prepared to buy the 35 euro bottle, half bottle, 500 ml. And it was really funny because he has his price list, and we said we'd like to buy some of these bottles, and he hands us over this price list, and we kind of circled what we were looking for. And then we go into the back room where there's a guy boxing up stuff that they are shipping out, and he goes from one corner of the room to another picking out these bottles and puts them into a box for us and gives us the box. It wasn't the tasting room. We were there first thing in the morning. Tasting room was cold as balls. But we sat and tasted, and then we went basically right into the back room to get these bottles. There wasn't like a shop that's all decked out with all kinds of kitchen and everything. You're right where the guy, you're standing beside the press buying the bottle of wine.
It's one of my favorite things about the experience in France. Is it like it really like I said, like I don't mean to just keep dumping on the tasting room experience in Niagara, because I know a lot of wineries invest a lot of time and money in establishing that hospitable and the hospitality and the tasting rooms and this and that. But I do think one of the problems with the wine industry in general is the fact that average consumers, and I put that in air quotes, because I think we've established in the 10 years of doing this podcast that there's no such thing as an average consumer. Like, it's different pieces of pie, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the fact that wine comes from a farm is, I think, one of the biggest, like, a lot of people don't think about that when they go to a store. And, like, even if you're buying a bottle of Yellowtail, which you shouldn't do, but even if you do decide to buy that, at some stage along that wine's life, it was on a farm. Like, it was obviously a very different farm than the farms Michael is visiting, because when push comes to shove, these picturesque wineries, you know, that are now beginning to offer that tourism experience. And I went to the Obayi website. You can book, like, a fantastic lunch at 198 euros per person, where it's expertly paired with a bunch of food, and it's a white tablecloth, and you're in this marble, or not marble, like you know, just a stone building that was built 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago. You know, you get this whole experience, you know, and it's still a farm. Like, that's it. Like, the vineyards that are surrounding the building, someone with dirt under their fingernails still works that land.
Yeah, and but you know what? You want to you apologize for crapping on the experience that Niagara's come up with, but I think now, in hindsight, which is always 2020, I think Bordeaux producers would love to have those tasting rooms decked out now. They've always been able to sell the wine out the back door or the front door or whatever way beside the press. But right now, I think a lot of them would love to have a cellar door, let's call it that looks a little better, has a better, representative tasting room, has stuff on the walls, because especially at Raymond Lafond, these are old guys that they may not have anybody to pass this winery on to. They've built it up, and they just keep saying, these guys are retirement age, and they're going, it is very tough to sell Sauternes right now. It is extremely tough to sell Sauternes right now. And it's tough to sell Bordeaux right now, but now go to a place where they're just making sweet wine, and it's even tougher. Think of the guys who what they did was only sell ice wine. If that's all you're doing, you're going to have a tough time of it, especially when the luxury market goes boo.
Yeah, I mean, it is the sort of thing where it's another thing where, and I mean, it wouldn't be two guys talking wine if we don't take a dig at the LCBO. The amount of Sauternes that comes through the LCBO, the amount of port that comes through the LCBO, there's no way you're not going to convince me that if you or I or someone decided to open a curated wine shop in St. Catharines or Hamilton, there would 100% be room on my shelf for a few sweet wines. And it's a nice thing about Sauternes and port is these are not wines that have a short shelf life as well. I know we're talking a little bit about a chicken and egg issue, but like, when's the last time the LCBO really put a spotlight on port or on Sauternes and educated potential clients on being able to buy them, right? And I'm not saying that
if they do it, they do it in a like the third feature of any release. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
that's exactly it. It's
Napa, and then you see something for New Zealand, which is 3 pages, and then you get 2 pages or a page of, hey, look, we have a couple of ports and we have a couple of Sauternes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't think it's going to fix the problem in Sauternes, but like, it certainly doesn't. It's certainly not helping people know that this category exists, know that these wines exist, and and you said the same thing. Like, you said the wines were tasty. Now, going back to my question, have you moved the needle? Is $30 the top, or are there wines that you think are worth the money there?
So,
and it's a yes or no question, Michael.
Okay, I bought two bottles from Grand Pays Lacoste. That was their second wine. I can't afford the first wine. But the second wine was 30 euros. It was 62 for two bottles. One was a 2020, and one was a 2022. So basically, I think one was 32 euros, one was 30 euros. So, you have to figure our dollar is, half of that again. So you're looking at wines that were basically $45. To me, I wanted to drink those wines again. And we're probably going to drink them here. But yes, I wanted that bottle to drink. And yes, I bought a bottle for $45. Yes, I did do that.
I'm proud of you.
Well, of course you would be. And then I could do a little crapping on the LCBO myself. They really don't do themselves any favors here in Bordeaux. I met one of the former or co-owner, I guess they're co-owner of something like Lynchbage. Very, very, popular winery, a very well-known winery. But she has also got another property. She's now stepped back because the second generation of Lynchbage is taking over, and she wanted to do something with her daughters. So they have this winery called Chateau Chauvin. And we had lunch with her, and she says, how do I get the LCBO to buy my wine? And I'm like, well, you need an agent. And she couldn't understand the idea of the agent. She's like, what do I need an agent for? What do I need an agent for? And I realized that, and then I said to her, so let me understand this. Lynchbage is bought directly by the LCBO, aren't they? And she goes, yes, because they are part of, I'm sure, Classics catalog. And so now to say to her, well, look, Chateau Chauvin isn't as well known as Lynchbage. You've got to start at the bottom of the pecking order and build it up so that it becomes a Lynchbage where the LCBO wants to buy it directly and not go through an agent. But it's unfathomable to them that they have to go through an agent if they are one of the big, Class A wineries.
Yep, there've been a few like that. I remember when I visited in 2013. I was received well at Château Trottevier, which is a Premier Grand Cru Classé in Saint-Emilion. And I've checked, I buy Bordeaux futures every year. I buy a couple bottles of Château La Confession because this is a winery that's partly owned by a Canadian, John Howard, also the owner of Megalomaniac. And the wines are great. I don't know if you've had a chance to taste or visit that winery, Michael, have you?
Nothing from Confession yet. I did try that La Rose that you liked so much. Actually, he was briefly at the tasting yesterday. He met with some people. I didn't meet him, but after he left, somebody says, "Oh, that's La Rose." I said, "With a Z?" And they said, "Yes." I go, "Oh, I should have said hello from André, but I didn't know because he was leaving by that time. What am I going to do? Chase him in the parking lot?"
Well, hang on.
I don't think the French take kindly to you chasing them down in the parking lot.
No, well, it is France. I mean, there are some things that fly there that don't fly here. It's taken years for Trottevier to be available through futures. I managed, it was, the first one was for the 2022 vintage, which is coming out this year. I managed to, like, not like it was hard, but like I purchased a bottle this year, but it's just like, it's one of these things where, like, I tasted at that winery. These wines are amazing. When you visit the airport in Paris, you can find Chateau Trottevier in the display case at the duty free. So, like, this isn't a small brand. It's we are being underserved by the monopoly. I mean, that's without a doubt. And it's certainly not helping anyone. It's not helping consumers. It's not helping the farmers in Bordeaux.
No, it doesn't, and it's confusing to everybody. How do you get into the market? Why can't I get my market in like my high end cousin over there? Well, because you're not known.
Did you like the La Rose?
I did like the La Rose. Yes.
Good.
They were in the same tasting as the Sansonnet and the Vaumerin, and they're part of the Grand Cru Classé Saint-Emilion or Saint-Emilion Grand Cru Classé.
Okay, so as we wind up the podcast, this has been This has been an awesome conversation, Michael. Like, I know I joked about missing you like a summer, but I actually miss you, and it's been nice to live vicariously through you. And we should try this scripting thing more often. We're not usually this focused. It's amazing what can happen. You've had a chance to visit some of the Premier Grand Cru Class A wineries, where even though you and I have already established on this podcast that these wines are tragically overpriced, and I'm hoping the prices do come down. And I hope no one goes out of business in order to lower their prices, because I guess
I don't think any of the first growths are gonna die if they I went to Angelus, tasted some really great wine, and I gotta hand it to Angelus. Let me start there before I tell you about going to a Premier Cru Classé. Angelus has a wine called Tempo. It's basically made in France, in their facility. I think it's in Fronsac, not at the big winery, but it is their name and it is their vineyards and it is, their stuff. They also make Carillon, and they also make, Angelus. Angelus is, I think, about 500 euros a bottle. That's the big wine. Okay. The second wine, if I'm not mistaken, he said was 150 euros. Carillon. Okay, but they're talking about they want to start getting the consumer who is not buying the 150, not buying the 500, or they want to get those people to buy those wines, but they realize that they have to also make something that, as we have said for years, and I have said for years, you need something for the average consumer to go out and buy and taste your wine, and then when they're excited by that, they're willing to make the jump to your next level. When they know that they can get a good value piece of wine or good value juice. I know Brian Schmidt hates when I call it juice, and I continue to do it because he hates it so much. But anyway, they have a wine called Tempo, 30 euros a bottle.
That's their fourth wine.
That's a third wine.
Okay, well they have another wine called Number 3.
Oh, well then I have no idea where that one. He did not show us Number 3.
Okay,
but it could. You know what? Number 3 could be Tempo now. Because
it's the same thing with Ornellaia. I buy La Volta del Ornellaia. I actually have a collection of the Volta del Ornellaia.
But if you look at what La Volta's doing, La Volta is also creeping up in price. They used to be $19.95, and they were $24.90 or $29. I think if you look at it now, it's $34, almost $40 a bottle.
$35, $35 a bottle now.
Right, and when when I started buying it, I know it was just over 20, but I think it was $21.95 when I bought my first bottle of that, and over the last 5 years, it's gone up $15.
But it's still occupying that part. Okay, point taken. I think there's a combination of people in Italy making a bit more money, and also the LCBO getting a little greedy over the past couple of years because fewer people are buying alcohol, but that's another topic for another day. But the point is, the Volta del Ornellaia occupies that part of the market that the Premier Grand Cru Class A winery should maybe look at beginning to occupy. Because there's
at least have a good second or third wine that sits there of quality. Okay. So to answer your question, I've only been to one at the moment. I know by the end of the trip, I think we'll be hitting all 5 Grand Cru Class A 1855s. I think we are going to all 5, but I did go to Haut-Brion.
Okay.
So far.
So, paint me the picture. And that's the catchphrase of this podcast is paint me the picture of, so what did it feel like as,
Here's the funny part about going to Haut-Brion. You go through the big main gates. You park your car. We're met in the parking lot by their marketing manager, whoever it is. She comes out, you see the iconic chateau, and then she says, and over there across the vineyard is the real chateau. And it's being under construction. They're doing some renovations on it. So we are going to go across the street to La Mission Haut-Brion to do the tasting. So I never even actually go into Haut-Brion. But Mission Haut-Brion is pretty interesting because it's an old abbey. And they've kept it.
You know what? I'm stopping your story right there. I asked you what it was like going to a Premier Grand Cru Classé. I've drank La Mission Haut-Brion. And I'm sure like it was pretty nice, but I didn't ask you what it was like visiting a nice winery. You and I have both been to nice wineries. I asked you what it was like visiting a Premier Grand Cru Class.
I drank some Haut-Briand though. How about that? Does that help you at all?
I'm gonna save you to paint that picture when you actually go to a Premier Grand Cru Class A, and we'll go from there.
But let me just tell you this: the napkins at some of these high-end wineries aren't napkins; they are cloth little napkins. They are cloth squares that are shaped like napkins, like folded in four, and they are cloth. They are not like I picked up one once to blow my nose, and I'm like, this is like a handkerchief. This is not a napkin anymore. So it is pretty interesting to see what they've done. They're all embossed and stuff like that. So the Haut-Briand had that, Pontet Canet had that, Coveted had that. I'm starting to get a little collection of these little, like almost you can use them as coasters later. These little cloth napkins. So
interesting. All right. Well, on that note, we'll let you hit the road again, and I'm sure we'll connect again in the next week or so. You are collecting tape, so we should have some interviews. You've dumped the first two up that I'm going to take a look at in the next
You'll be proud of me, Andre. I'm eating more weird food than you think I would.
Dude, there's nothing weird. It's French food. It's like the most normal food that you can eat while you're traveling.
There's weird stuff here, my friend. Weird.
Have you had escargot yet?
No, we haven't had any escargot. But do you know what the big thing around here is? Do you want me to tell you what the big thing around here?
Please.
Croque Monsieur as an appetizer, and they make them like almost like a grilled cheese. Like they've got that really crisp outside. They cut off the crusts. That is what a croque monsieur
is. Michael, I hate to break this to you. A croque monsieur is it's a grilled cheese with ham.
That's the big thing around here. Like you go anywhere.
You must be in heaven. Like you with the palate of a picky 5-year-old. Like, you must be losing your mind to be like, oh, my God, there's a grilled cheese with every meal.
But it's like high-end croque monsieur. This is the thing that you go to these wine dinners, and they give you the amuse-bouche or the appetizer as you're drinking, believe it or not, champagne. Is like mini croque monsieur. It's really funny to sit there.
You know what? Let's get into the
here's
food.
A grilled cheese, sir.
Let's get into the food a bit on the next episode, just because I'm sure people are sick of the sound of your voice. I know, even though I said I missed you, I'm starting to get sick of your voice as well.
I know it's a Sunday. You want to go catch a disease from your child again. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. Michael is not independently wealthy, even though he's in Bordeaux. There was some finagling, favors, friends. You basically borrowed, and stealed your way into Bordeaux. And those of us who are following on social media appreciate it. Please keep posting, but support this podcast. It's the new year. Help keep your favorite two guys able to afford to create this content. Your donations were able to afford a decent microphone that Michael has in his possession to make sure that things sound great while he's there. And I'm André Prue at AndreWineReview.ca. If you haven't visited in a while, I have finally updated it after a year and a half. Everything is up to date and a nice collection of podcasts for you to check out if you've missed anything. And at André Wine Review on social media.
I even saw you put up a newsletter.
I did put out a newsletter,
which had your wrong address on it. But anyway, that tells you how long it's been.
Who's sending me mail? Who's sending me mail? Anyways, go ahead. Continue.
Whatever. Okay, I'm Michael Pinkus of MichaelPincusWineReview.com. Happy New Year to everybody. I don't think we've wished everybody a Happy New Year yet. So happy 2025. I hope it's a good one for everybody. You can find me on social media as The Grape Guy or sometimes as Michael Pinkus. Follow me. I am here in Bordeaux for another 2 weeks. Then it's off to Italy again.
It's a hard life, but someone's got to do it, I guess, right?
It's a hard knock life for us.
Don't sing, just take us away, Michael.
For us. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Adam Duran and Ken Little.